This is Saturday Morning Mysteries.
And we're your hosts, Alexis and Grace.
Hello, good morning, and welcome back to another episode of Saturday Morning Mysteries, where we're your hosts. I'm Grace.
And I'm Alexis.
And we're back for our second Kim Possible episode in our new arc, following a teenage mercenary and her buddies.
As we have determined and decided.
And her pals, just, for hire, for whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Like literally for anything.
What anything.
Cat sitting.
You got it.
Rescuing an ambassador from a horrible attack.
You got it.
Stopping the threat of a nuclear bomb from going off, probably, or a rocket being launched.
You got it.
Jobs.
Mowing your lawn.
Mowing your lawn. Saving the nation of Japan from a horrible monster robot that was taking over the town. And yeah, they do it all at Team Possible.
This trio. Well, not trio. I'm so sorry.
Rufus, hello.
I know.
Four of them.
Quad.
Yeah. This quad.
Doesn't
sound as good.
I mean,
we can still say trio, in which case it's Kim, Rufus, and Wade. And not Ron.
Ron's Rufus's ride.
Yeah. Literally. Yeah, that's probably about right. And this episode will prove that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes,
it's Alexis'
or it'll
turn
support
this week.
that. Yeah.
All right. Well, I look forward to it. You've dropped a lot of hints about this episode.
Yeah. I'm excited for it.
Rufus.
Rocket scientist. Exactly. So last week, in Grace's first episode of Kim Possible, I did mention that everyone should tell a rocket scientist about this podcast, because today we're going to talk more about the rocket scientist in this show, Dr. James Possible, aka Kim's father.
Yes.
And since he and his wife, Anne, Dr. Anne, aka Kim's mother, are bigger parts of this episode, perhaps, or at least the way that I'm going to tell this episode, I did also have to take a moment to highlight the voice actors for those two characters as well, because they are also iconic, not only in the voice acting world, but in the real, live action acting world. Yeah, so James Possible, the dad, the father, is voiced by Gary Cole, who, I gotta say, I recognize his voice. He's one of those ones where I'm like, God, I know this voice. It's a very familiar voice.
And the name is very familiar. I'm gonna look him up.
Yes. Well, I will also say he was in many things, including Office Space, the movie, Veep, the show, literally one of the greatest shows to ever exist in this world, in my humble opinion.
He's like that guy.
He's in so much stuff. He's that guy.
Yes.
He's like, oh my God, that's that guy. Oh, hey, he's in everything.
He's in Veep as well, and is an incredible character in Veep.
Hilarious. His character in Veep is hilarious. And he voices Sergeant Bosco in Bob's Burgers, and Fred Jones's dad in Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, like one of the newer iterations of Scooby-Doo.
Oh my God.
So I was like, I know
Gary
this
Cole.
voice. I know this voice. And then I saw it was Gary Cole, and I was like, oh, he's one of my favorite actors, especially comedy actors.
Amazing.
He's so freaking funny in every role that he plays.
Yes.
So that made me very happy.
Okay.
And then when I heard Anne Possible speak, I was like, God, I know this voice too. There's something so comforting about it to me. She is voiced by Jean Smart, who I only learned about Jean Smart, really learned about her a couple years ago from watching the show Watchmen, which is based off of a DC comic and was on HBO and on Max.
I also know her.
But then I realized, no, I recognize this woman. I've seen her in other things because she was in a season of Frasier. She was also in the Brady Bunch movie along with Gary Cole.
Oh, they were both in that?
They were both in that. Yeah,
totally
different characters, obviously. Yeah, he played Mr. Brady, I'm pretty sure Gary Cole did. And then Jean Smart was like a neighbor or something like that. But yeah.
Oh my God.
And she was in the newer movie Babylon, which was in theaters a couple years ago.
Isn't she in a TV show right now that's really popular?
Yes, which I haven't watched, but she just won an Emmy for it as best actress or something. Yeah, so she's still kicking, rocking. But the reason I really recognized her voice was because she voiced a character in one of my favorite little niche Adult Swim cartoons from way back in the early 2000s called The Oblongs, which I don't know if you remember that, but it starred Will Ferrell and her. Yeah.
What?
And it was produced by Will Ferrell. Yes, where they played like
Gotta look this
look
up
this
too.
up. It's like the
Hold
greatest
up.
show ever. I think episodes of it are on Tubi now. Or maybe actually also on HBO Max or on Max because it was on Adult Swim. But anyways, it's about a family of like radioactively what do you call it? Like they have
Like
been
infected.
mutated. Yeah,
Yeah,
infected slash mutated,
oh
a
my
family
God.
that lives in this very like highly radioactive town, like a super fun site, basically, where like you have the haves, the rich people that own all these toxic polluting companies living on top of the
Oh,
hill, and the oblongs and all their neighbors living like downhill in all of this toxic waste and just trying to like
live their
coexist
lives.
in society, yeah,
Oh,
with
this
these
is
rich people. And it's
funny.
like the funniest show, but like also very weird and just
Yeah, it
prime
sounds like
Adult
it.
Swim early 2000s
Yes,
vibes.
just what can
So
we do? Let's do it.
let's fucking
Amazing.
do it. So I just recognized her voice from that because she plays the mother in that show. And
Oh,
then her
funny.
playing the mother in this, they have very similar vibes. A lot of
Oh,
differences, but like you just
yeah,
hear them
not
saying some of the
radioactively
same
mutated.
things. No, exactly. And she's not a chain smoking, like vagrant in this show that she is in freaking the oblongs. But yeah, I had
Funny.
to say that because I
Wow, yeah, I
recognized
never heard of
both of
that
those
show.
voices listening to these. And I was like, God, where have I heard these voices? I looked it up and it's like, oh, it's two actors that I love, not just voice actors, but
Amazing.
actual like live action actors
Yes,
too. So
which
just
I will say
further
they pull
proving,
in
yeah,
like such big hits, like for their villains. Like my next episode also,
literally.
I was like, what?
You're here? What are you
Yeah,
doing here?
it's
Yeah. So
incredible.
again, the iconicness of this show and just
Yes.
another thing that makes me wish like or makes me realize, gosh, why didn't I watch this growing up?
Yes.
But I
Agreed.
think it has more emotional stake for me now than it did then. Because back then, like, I didn't care about Gary Cole and
Yeah, you
Jean
didn't know
Smart
who
when
that
I was
was.
like a 12-year-old girl. No,
Yeah.
but now I'm like, oh my God, I love these actors. They're
Yeah, now
amazing.
it means something to us.
Now it means the world to me.
The
Okay. It means
world.
everything.
Amazing.
So, yes, this episode, it focuses more, at least the way I'm going to tell it, it focuses a
Good.
lot more on James Possible and his relationship, as we mentioned last week, to the evil Dr. Draken and where some of
Okay.
this villain origin story all began or where
Yes.
it dates back to. So we see in this episode Dr. James Possible hard at work. Oh, and sorry, I should say this is from season 1, episode 9, and it's called
Okay.
Attack of the Killer Bebes.
Okay.
So James Possible is hard at work at the Middletown Space Center, and he's wrapping up his day, his last duties for the day in his big lab, overseeing like a rocket launch site.
Okay.
And while he's doing that, closing up things on his computer and whatnot, he gets a call from his wife, the neurosurgeon, Dr. Ann Possible. And Anne tells James that she's getting ready to order pizza for dinner tonight and asks James simply what he wants. But
Hmm.
James, he's like a pretty typical, stereotypically written dad for
TV
the
dad,
era,
yeah.
where he's very kind of, although he's insanely intelligent,
Yes.
extremely bright, and a genius, a rocket scientist and astrophysicist, to be specific.
Yeah.
He just is constantly fumbling and like typical,
Kind of
like
just a
nerdy
buffoon.
dad. Yeah, kind of a buffoon and just like his everyday kind of stuff where he
Yeah.
just doesn't really pay attention to where he's putting his hands or knocks things over kind of easily, if
Interesting.
you
Yes.
will.
Interesting
And
specific examples you just named. Okay.
yes,
I see.
perhaps, especially when one is working behind the control desk at a soon-to-be launch site for a prototype rocket that one
Okay.
has just created. And so
Perhaps.
he's pondering which toppings he wants on the pizza, trying to
Mhm.
respond to his wife on the phone, and he's fumbling around, kind of just like lays his hand down conveniently on a button and or lever as he tells his wife that, bacon works for him as a topping tonight.
Okay.
And in fumbling around on his control desk and accidentally pressing a button and or lever, he accidentally also launches that prototype rocket that he created.
He hit the launch button, just the
He
full
hit the launch
on.
full
Okay, there's
on
no further
oopsies.
like checks. There's no like
Mm-mm.
10 fours. Okay.
He
There was
is the
one
final
button.
voice. Yep, it's his rocket, his
Okay.
alone. He is the failsafe, and he just failed
And he's
very
failed.
unsafely. So James at this point tells his wife like he'll be home in 30 minutes or less. He just needs to like clean something
He
up real
doesn't see
quick.
it.
Not yet. Not yet. As soon as he
Okay.
hangs up the phone, he sees it and he's like,
Okay.
whoops. He literally is just like,
It's
oopsies.
gonna be a
Like
tight
this is
45, not 30.
this maybe not 30 after all. It might be 45 now. Sorry about that, hun. But yeah, this seems to be a not super uncommon thing for him because he just sees it going, or he doesn't even see it go off. He sees that the rocket is no longer there and hears like alarms blaring outside and then says, whoopsies. And then kind of just like gets on his computer and starts like tracking it and like trying to maybe
Might as well
like
see where
stop
it
it or
goes.
exactly like, well, let's see what's going on.
Yeah, he's
And
pretty
as he's
casual
doing
about
that,
this.
he is. This shows you how much of a genius he is and how high of a position of power he must be
Ah,
in,
indeed.
because he seems to
He's
have
just
no fear of being
nonplussed.
fired at
Yeah.
all and is just more so impressed by what his rocket is doing
So
than
I did a
freaking
great
out about the
job.
fact, yes. So as he's kind of starting to track it on his computer, he gets a phone call from an old friend and colleague, a man called Professor Bob Chen or Robert Chen.
Okay.
And Bob Chin, we learn, is an old college friend of James and is a fellow scientist who works nearby. I think he's an astronomer
Hmm.
at the Middleton Observatory or something like that. We'll talk
Uh-huh.
about that more in a minute. And so on the phone, he asks James if by chance, as he was looking through his telescope over
It's
at
your
the
rocket.
observatory, just doing some work,
James, is this
he was
your
like,
rocket or are you just happy to see me? No, James, is this your rocket?
no, but really, is this your rocket though? For real. And that's basically what he says. He's like, by chance, did you happen to just launch something from over at the Space Center in your
Hey,
neck of
Air
the
Force is
woods?
calling me. They need to know if this
Put
is
a
yours or not.
put a pin in that. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And yeah, it's the way that Bob Chen asks James this is just so funny because you can tell that he's used to James's bullshit and shenanigans and just like constantly messing stuff up. Like that's half of the reason he's calling like
Uh-huh.
James. You silly goose. Is that you over there?
Hey,
And
rocket.
also, on the other half, he is kind of like, we're not under attack, are we? That was you, right? That was you. I don't need to call any of my
This is on
superiors.
purpose, right?
We're good. Yeah. And James does confirm. He's like, yep, that was me. Went up like a dream. Too bad it wasn't supposed to launch until next week, though. And so again, pure scientist. He does not care
It's like,
about the
I did a great
repercussions. He
job.
just, yeah, he's like, isn't it
Absolute
beautiful?
slay.
Yeah. And Bob Chin's like, yeah, man, this is a nice rocket. Like looking through the telescope, like, good job, man. That thing's beautiful. Well done, sir. Well done. Now that I know we're not under attack, I will compliment your
I can
work
admire
here.
it.
Yes.
Amazing.
And also, Bob Chin picks up on the fact that James said it wasn't supposed to launch until next week. So, Bob, knowing his good old pal from college very well, is like,
Uh-huh.
did you lean on a button again, James?
James,
James,
James be leaning.
always be leaning.
Always.
That's what they used to call him in the old days.
Leaning James.
Leaning James possible. Leaning possible. So
Wow.
yeah, James again, he knows his friends know him better than anyone else.
Uh-huh.
Much like on this podcast, they're basically finishing each other's sentences. And
Oh,
James is
besties.
like, "Yep, that was me." We're like, "Yep, you know it. Roger that. I'm always leaning on shit and accidentally launching." Like, you
You'd
got me,
think NASA
Bob.
would have learned, but here we
Yeah,
are.
here we are. I still somehow have a job. And so Bob asks him after that, he's like, all right, well, since we're not under attack or anything, might as well
Uh-huh.
catch up with you. And he asks if James is going to be at their college reunion this weekend, which they all graduated
Oh,
from the Middleton Institute of Science and Technology.
okay.
And James, again, confirms, like, yep, I'll be there and I can't wait to see you guys. It's going to be a great
Wait, sorry.
time.
That's also very funny. MIT.
Exactly.
Like,
MIST,
oh,
technically.
ST.
Yes,
I was,
but
that's why I was
but
pausing. I was like, wait, did she say there was another
wait.
letter in there? Either way,
Yeah,
very funny.
that's basically the only reason I said it because I was like, people, y'all will get it. Those who get it will
Yeah.
get it. Yes. And as James is telling Bob, like, yeah, can't wait to be there. Looking forward to the reunion. He's like, oh, I gotta go. Actually, I just see like he's looking at the tracking device for the
Uh-huh.
rocket still, and he's like, oh, James, hey, the military is actually closing in on this rocket, so I'm gonna need to hop off real quick, and I gotta
I
make
can't
another
be
phone
seen
call.
talking with you right now.
I think James doesn't care, actually. No, he's just like, I just got to call them and let them know it was me. Although
Don't
they probably
explode this,
also know.
please.
Yeah. Like, please, we need to like study that when it comes back down. Don't explode it. It's safe.
Oh my
Please, we're
God.
good. Please don't strip my grant funding away from me. Honest classic mistake. I was
It's
thinking
clearly
about pizza.
working.
Yeah,
It's clearly I'm doing a good
exactly.
job.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry that you guys weren't here to see the launch like we thought you would be, but like, look, it's in there. You see it.
You still seeing it?
So Bob, who is sitting, like I said, under his massive telescope at the Middleton Observatory, at this point, he hangs up so James can go handle that little thing. And he just chuckles as he hangs up the phone, like, "Pff, same old possible. Like shit has not leaning
Lean
James,
impossible.
leaning possible." And as he's sitting there in this observatory, and it's kind of getting dark outside, so it's kind of dark inside of his office, we
Mhm.
see from the shadows behind him these glowing red eyes that start kind of
Oh,
popping up one by one, like pair by pair, I should say,
uh-huh.
until I think there's three or four pairs of red eyes that we see.
Okay.
And we see them starting to approach Bob, getting closer and closer. And Bob starts to hear this movement around him in the observatory, like metallic footsteps kind of getting closer to him.
Okay.
So he swings around in his chair and he gasps as he's face to face with some sort of cyborg that is shaped like a woman. And a
Oh,
few other similar cyborgs surround them. They're still kind of in the shadow, so you can't really see what they look like, but you can see the
yeah.
shape. Like they have long hair and like
The classic shape,
they
curvy
got
shape.
classic curves,
Okay.
yes. And so the cyborgs grab Bob Chin before he's able to really put up a fight, much less
Oh,
call out for help. Yeah, and
okay.
they abduct him just straight up.
Oh, okay.
So the next night, we see James Possible at home at that beautiful, like you said, like contemporary Frank Lloyd Wright
Beautiful.
style home, the Possible home, sitting, enjoying his time with his daughter, reading the newspaper, while Kim is
Mhm.
like on the floor, kind of just like sulking, classic teenage girl vibes, feeling a
Okay.
bit down nearby. And she eventually kind of groans and asks her dad for some advice. And he tells her, like, well, your mom's a lot better at giving advice about boys, if that is
Yeah.
what this is about. But in one of the funniest lines of the entire episode,
Uh-huh.
him is like, "Oh no, this isn't about a boy. It's about Ron."
Aw.
And James like, "Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, what's up with
What's up?
Ron?
What's that little kid up to?" I was like,
Oh,
"Aw, poor
Ronnie.
Ron." Yeah. Anyways, so Kim tells her dad that Ron recently decided to join the cheerleading squad, much to her
Okay.
chagrin, because Kim, she is the captain of the cheerleading squad at Middleton High School, which is
Uh-huh.
super impressive as like a freshman or sophomore or
Yeah.
something, with like seniors and stuff on the team too. And Ron recently learned from his guidance counselor that he needs to boost his extracurriculars for his future
Mm,
college applications. And
classic.
so he was trying to find the right group to join after school. And it's funny, him and Kim earlier in the episode, like you see them having a conversation, like bouncing back ideas. He's like, or she
Uh-huh.
says, well, you could join the mathletes. And Ron's hilariously like, I can't get in that kind of shape. And then it's hilarious because you mentioned debate club in your last
Yeah.
week's episode. And so Kim was like, well, what about debate club? And Ron's like, I'm not going to argue with you, Kim. I don't, I don't know which one to
That ain't
join.
me.
Like,
Oh my
yeah,
God,
he's like, I can't
amazing.
decide. And then Kim says something along the lines of, look, Ron, extracurriculars are great. You just got to find one that speaks to you. Like for me, it's cheerleading. And Ron pauses like, that's it,
Cheerleading.
cheerleading. And Kim's like, for me, not you.
That's my
My
extracurricular
thing. That's
activity.
my thing.
Oh
Because look,
no.
Kim, she obviously loves Ron, even
Hmm.
like platonically at this point, right? Like they
Yes.
are best friends. She would do anything for him. But Ron is Ron. And as much as we expressed our
Yeah.
love for Ron in last week's episode, and we
Yeah.
will continue to do so, he's a
Always.
lot, especially for someone who's pretty basic like Kim. Like Kim doesn't have like this explosive personality. She's
Yeah.
not always trying to make jokes or entertain people. She's just a normal girl trying to just like do well in school and like go on dates with boys. And like you said,
Yeah.
make sure she doesn't have a zit.
Yeah.
So she needs kind of that space or that place away
Yeah.
from Ron every now and again to also just
Yeah.
hang out with girls and like be a normal teenager.
Yeah.
And yes, she does love Ron, but like
He needs
he does
space
kind of mess stuff up a
sometimes.
lot and he can embarrass
You're not going to
people
also put
sometimes.
him at the bottom of the pyramid with Kim on top.
Exactly. Like,
That's not gonna
I
work.
wouldn't, she knows that she's falling down if that happens. The
Yeah.
whole pyramid's coming down.
Everything.
And she just doesn't want to embarrass, she doesn't want
Herself.
Ron to embarrass himself or her in front of the
Yes.
cheer squad or the general viewing public that like attends all of these basketball
Yeah,
games
the
and
entire
football games for
school.
the school.
Yeah,
Exactly.
good point.
So Ron decided he did settle for being a cheerleader at first, but he eventually made it to like a team practice to try out and changed his
Uh-huh.
mind and decided instead to be the team mascot because he was like, okay, maybe I
Okay,
shouldn't
be
go full cheerleader.
silly.
Exactly. And that's what he tells her. He's like, I'm super energetic. I love to have fun. The crowd will love me. And so
Yeah.
he shows Kim a mask, a Mad Dog mask, which is their mascot, is like a
Hmm.
bulldog. So they call them the Middleton Mad Dogs.
Okay.
And he shows her this mask that he made for the costume that he says he made with a movie makeup magic kit, which he's actually very
Okay.
skilled with. And like Kim is actually
Okay.
impressed by it at first, but then concerned when he pulls out a mask of Kim that he also made with that
Oh
kit.
my God.
And she's like, this is actually impressive and creepy, but
And this
impressive.
is
Good
why I
job,
was
Ron.
worried about you hanging out with me in front of other
Exactly.
people.
Because everyone else sees
This
this.
is
The whole cheer
weird.
squad is behind me and sees you showing this mask of me
This is
in front of
terrifying.
them. This is very scary. Good
Yeah.
job, but let's save this
Please
for
don't.
later, not
Yeah.
now. And so he puts on the mask and this costume and starts to demo his like Mad Dog halftime mascot
Hmm.
routine, which involves him like ejecting foam out of his mouth like a
Oh
rabid,
man.
mad
Okay.
animal or dog.
Uh-huh.
And this foam happens to be made out of like banana cream. So it's super harmless and
Oh, uh-huh.
tasty if you don't mind having banana cream foam
I
thrown on
mind.
you.
I
And I
mind.
would
I
very much
absolutely
mind,
mind.
yes. But Ron thinks it's okay because it's edible and not poisonous.
Uh-huh.
And so he shakes his foam from his mask everywhere and just like sprays it everywhere
Uh-huh.
for this demo's sake, he sprays it onto Kim and Bonnie,
Of
who we talked
course.
about last week, the it girl at the school who's also on the
Uh-huh.
cheerleading squad, and some of the other cheerleaders. And they are not pleased. They are not as amused as Ron is. He
Yeah.
thinks that this is going to like get them super excited and that there's no way they won't
Yeah.
love this and
Oh,
totally accept him as being
Ron.
the mascot. But Bonnie's
Ron.
like, no, you are going to embarrass yourself in front of everybody if you get out there and do this. And it's just gross. Like, we are now all sticky with like banana
Yeah.
cream, whipped cream all
Yeah.
over us.
She's not wrong,
She's not wrong at all. And
unfortunately.
unfortunately, Kim agrees that she's not wrong. Because in this
Yeah.
moment, Ron thinks that Kim is going to stand up for him and be like,
Oh
yeah, you're my
no.
friend. I trust in you. I think it'll be fine. But Kim actually is like, Ron, Bonnie's right. I don't think we can make this work. And this
Oh.
very much upsets Ron and immediately puts a wedge
Yeah.
between him and Kim because he
Yeah.
thinks that she should obviously have stood up for him, which she should
Yeah.
have as his best friend.
Yeah.
So James, again, this is all just Kim hashing it out to her dad, at least the way I'm
Yeah.
retelling this. James at this point tells Kim about a time where he didn't stick up for a friend. And this
Interesting.
was back when
Interesting.
he was in college
Uh-huh.
at the Middleton Institute of Science and Technology,
Okay.
MIST.
Missed. At missed.
MIST, yes. And he and a group of friends, his posse, as he
Mm.
likes to call them, they were oh so
Okay.
cool. They were all prepping for the big science department mixer. So I assume this is probably when they're, I mean, maybe they were undergrad, but I feel like they were maybe like getting their masters
Grad
at this
school.
point. Because,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like they're all in suits and it looks like they have control of this lab that they're
Yeah.
working in. So they
They're
don't like
just
seem
grad
like,
students.
yeah, exactly. And so James and his posse, which consists of a Dr. or Professor Bob, soon to be Professor Bob Chen, who we've
Uh-huh.
met, and a young, also soon to be Professor Ramesh, who we will meet again in just a moment.
Okay.
They're all hanging out in the science department lab, waiting for the arrival of their other friend and classmate, Drew Lipsky.
Okay.
Drew has promised that he would get them all dates for the mixer and that he was going to arrive with the
Mm.
dates at any moment just before they needed to head out for the party.
Okay.
So just as the young men begin to doubt Drew because he still hasn't showed up, so they're
Yeah.
like, I don't think he could get a date for himself, much less all
Oh,
four of us,
yeah.
like the rest of us. Like, come on. And so they're starting to doubt him right
Uh-huh.
when he actually shows up at the lab.
Okay.
And Drew,
Alone?
alone to start out,
Okay.
he comes
Okay.
into the lab. He's very excited. He's ready to introduce the men to their new ladies.
Oh,
And
okay.
Drew, he has a recognizably raspy, kind of gruff voice, if you
I
will.
see.
He doesn't have blue
Drew, you
skin.
said his
He
name
has
was?
Drew Lipsky.
Okay.
He does not have blue skin, just for whatever reason, if people were wondering if he happened to have blue skin.
I
He
was
doesn't.
wondering
He
that.
has regular,
Okay.
he's just a regular white guy. He still has very nice, thick black hair that's kind of like slicked
Okay.
back and into a ponytail. He's got big, thick glasses. And he has on a nice blue suit too, also. All
Okay.
four of them are like wearing different suits. It's very like 80s and 70s looking suits
Yes.
though, too, though. But yeah,
Okay.
they're all nice, clean young men. And Drew, like I said, he's very excited when he gets there and is ready to introduce these men to their new ladies, their dates for the mixer.
Okay.
And he tells the men that he didn't just find them dates for the evening. Instead, he wants to introduce them to the future, the dates that he created for
Oh
this
no.
evening. And
Do we see
into
a
the
curvy
lab.
shape in the background?
Oh,
Perhaps.
they're curvy. But it's almost like how, in the Renaissance era, big women were like
Oh, uh-huh.
coveted because it's like, oh,
Yes.
wow, they must be
She's
so wealthy. They
rich.
can, yeah,
Yeah.
she's rich. She can eat. She's thick.
Uh-huh.
That's the kind of thickness of these robots, not the
Okay.
modern day, like Sports Illustrated swimsuit thickness or like
Especially not
whatever curve.
2002. No
No,
one
no,
was
no,
curvy
no.
then.
Those are the modern robots, but these early stage
Hell
ones,
yeah.
they are just very large. They have like the conveyor belt type wheels where they're like
Oh,
rolling
yes.
around on one long kind of wheel,
Yes.
and they have like the waving arms and like the
Okay,
clamp
so this
hands.
is not, it's
And
basically the maid from the Jetsons,
yes, literally,
except
it's
like
what's
more
her name?
curvy.
Rosie, I think. Yeah,
Rosie, I think so.
it's like that, but even bigger. And they have
Okay.
on like curly blonde wigs and red
Oh, okay, so
dresses.
it's horrible.
Really bad.
Based on the
It's
ones described earlier, I was like, oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh, no,
okay,
this is
maybe.
round one. I see.
This is these are the early
I
designs. Yes.
see.
And these things, they just kind of roll in mechanically saying, "My name is BB. My name is BB." And
Oh,
again,
okay.
all four of them are dressed the same. So even if the guys were okay with this, like they don't want to
Which I
all look
hope
like
they're
they're
not.
dating the same. You hope correctly.
Okay,
Your hope
good,
is
good.
correct and affirmed. But like they don't want to all be dating the same robot. Like it looks like they're all
Yeah.
the same. Put different dresses and wigs on them,
Oh, yeah,
man.
come on. At least a different
On a
name.
budget. Yeah. And so one of these robots kind of wheels itself right up to Drew and it picks him up. And Drew is like, would you like to dance, BB? And it like starts twirling him around. Well, it first says like affirmative, which how
Ooh, sexy.
romantic. Sexy. That's how you get him turned on. And it rolls up to Drew and just starts like firmly grasping him and spinning him around, twirling him,
Oh
lifting
no.
him up, almost certainly breaking and or realigning his
Mm.
backbones in the
Uh-huh.
process. And the other men, like they're reacting to this the exact way we are. Like they're just laughing, like they are
Like, this is
cracking
insane.
up, pointing at Drew, saying, like, dude, this is so ridiculous. This cannot be a replacement for an actual woman to go on a date with in
Yeah.
no world. Like,
Are
sorry
we gonna
about it,
do this?
buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we will go stag, we will go
Yeah,
solo
we
to this
don't need a
mixer.
date.
Exactly. I would rather go home with someone after this than take this
Yes,
robot
show up
and
with this
never get a date
anywhere.
again.
Then take this
Yeah.
robot anywhere, in fact, not just to the
Yes.
mixer.
So Drew starts yelling at the other guys through all of their laughter and their ridicule.
Mm.
And he tells them that one day his genius will be recognized. He
Uh-oh.
will eventually perfect the BB robots, and they will be the last ones laughing at him.
Oh, okay.
So we fade out of this flashback, and James tells Kim that Drew, shortly after that, dropped out of school, and they never
Oh.
saw or heard from him ever again.
Whoa,
And
that's
they think
dark.
that it is dark, right? Yeah. And they're like, he never forgave us for, or sorry, he says that Drew never forgave them for what they did to him, like making sure or making fun of
Laughing at
him
him.
and exactly calling him an idiot, saying that he can't even like create a proper robot, etc.
Yeah.
Which also, like, pretty sure the burden is on them to apologize to Drew and not
Yeah.
on Drew to like forgive them without apology. But whatever,
Apology.
James.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like,
But
Drew
like
never
tell
forgave
yourself that
us.
story to make yourself feel
Exactly.
better about
If that
laughing
makes
your
you feel
friend out of
okay.
school. Yeah. That
Exactly. And
helps you
out of a
sleep at night,
career.
James.
Yeah. Like, if that helps you, sure. But to this day, James wonders if it's actually him and Bob and Ramesh, the other friends of his, who actually can't forgive themselves for how cruel they were to him. So
Seems like
he
yes.
knows exactly. It's like, okay, if you have to think that, then yeah, that's probably what it is. So he knows that he
Yeah.
needs to forgive. But to his credit, they don't even know where they can find Drew Lipsky at this point. Like he
Okay.
disappeared, as far as they know, off the face of the earth. Drew
Okay.
Lipsky no longer exists. Dot, dot,
Dot,
dot.
dot, dot.
More on that in a moment, of course. So Kim, somewhat confused by this story, says like, seriously, like all of this happened just because of a little giggle fit, like you guys were just poking fun at your friend. And
Uh,
James is like, oh no, it was way more than that. We laughed long and hard at this guy, Kim. Like, long and hard with youthful abandon, quote unquote, is what he says. And in Gary Cole's voice, it's just so funny. I think it was at that point where I realized, like, I
you're
know
like,
this
this is so,
voice
yes,
actor.
that's just like sarcastic, dry,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh my
like
God.
chuckling through it, like, oh no,
Oh
no,
no, no,
you
no.
we laughed at him for a very long time, kid.
I'm hearing this in his voice.
It
It was
was
amazing.
it was amazing. And so he asks Kim, like, so will you reconsider letting Ron do his whole Mad Dog routine and just let him kind of be himself? And Kim's like, no, I don't think so. That routine is so stupid. I can't. Ron would never
Dad,
do something like Drew Lipsky. He won't like
yeah, Dad, it sounds like you guys were
disappear.
assholes. I'm in the right though. Youthful
I'm in the
abandon, I
right.
don't have that. I have standards.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I didn't laugh at Ron. I just
Yeah.
said, no, you can't do that. You
I just
guys
said
are
you
actually
suck.
bullying him.
Yeah.
You guys bullied Drew. That poor guy. I hope he's okay to this day. Who knows if we'll ever see him again. Dot,
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 dot.
dot.
Yeah. So the next morning at school, Kim breaks the news to Ron that she made the final decision, much to his anger and disappointment, to not let him perform as a mascot during
Damn.
this week's basketball game.
Also, so
Yeah.
crazy because all you have to do is be like, hey, Ron, don't do the foam thing. Like,
Yeah,
you can
right?
still be the mascot, but here are the rules that you have to
Yeah.
follow.
Also true.
That's
Kim is
it.
very black and white. Yeah. She's
Yeah.
like, no, she she loves Ron,
Genius.
but maybe she doesn't quite trust him. She's like, no, if we let him out there at all, it's one thing if he doesn't do the foam thing, but
He's
he's
gonna
gonna
find
do
something else.
something. He's gonna do something. He's not gonna run it by us first, so we just have to cut this shit at the root. He
Yeah.
can't even. You need to
Give
sit in
him
the
the
stands at all
shot.
times.
Yeah.
You're
No
not
second
allowed on.
chances, no first chances.
Exactly. So Ron, yeah, he's pretty upset about this. He tells Kim that her and her quote unquote squad, they just don't get it. They don't get his
His
genius,
art.
okay? His art, his way, his ability to entertain. But
Mm,
he's more so mad that she's pretty wrong for not believing in her best friend or who she calls her best friend.
yeah.
She's like, dude, or he says, dude, you've known me forever. We're supposed to be best friends. We're supposed to support each other through anything and have each other's backs. And he is her sidekick too, like in her missions and stuff.
Yeah.
So like
He's
you
had your
should
back a
trust me
lot,
here.
Kim.
Exactly. Even if he does always mess it up, I mean, you're still alive, so
Yeah.
it's fine. It's working, right?
Yeah.
So Wade, at this point, thankfully interrupts this argument between these two by calling Kim and telling her, obviously through like a video chat or whatever,
Hmm.
telling her that he has a weird mission assignment for her. A man by the name of Professor Ramesh from the
Okay.
Mount Middleton Observatory just called and wants her help. And Kim stops Wade there for a second, like, Ramesh, wait, I know he knows my dad. I know this guy.
Uh-huh.
Literally was just talking about him last night. And Wade further explains that Professor Ramesh's partner, Professor Bob Chin,
Mm.
recently went missing. And
Okay.
Ramesh is now calling in to Wade for Kim's help. And so at this point,
Interesting.
Kim's like, okay, I know both of those names. This is interesting. This is crazy.
Yes. Also,
So
I'm
Kim,
like, call the police.
yeah,
There's been a
she's
kidnapping.
like, she's like, listen, if
Oh,
it's more than a dog needing to be walked,
Call
Let's get the police on back up
call
at
a
least.
detective. Like,
Yeah, right.
I don't know, does he have state secrets? Call the FBI. Like,
Yeah, somebody, the CIA, perhaps even. I don't know if
just,
it's like foreign secrets that they have.
yeah,
I'm not
just
sure, but
call
this seems
call someone with a
way
badge.
out of my pay grade.
Yes. Okay.
So,
Okay, fine.
nope, that's not what Kim says.
Nope.
Never, never. She can do it all.
Never.
Call me, beat me if you want to reach
If you want to
me.
reach me.
Don't do it all. Yes. So Kim and Ron, still at odds, they decide to get to the observatory by different means. Kim,
Oh, wow, they're mad.
she calls, oh, they're mad. They're hella mad. Like they're not talking.
Damn.
Kim, she asks Wade to secure her a ride because obviously she cannot drive. And
Yeah.
Ron decides to just hop on his bike and bike his way over to the
Okay.
observatory because he does not have the same social cred that Kim does. The
Yeah.
favors are not, he's
To
not owed any
Ron.
favors.
No, yeah.
Exactly.
They're to
So,
Kim.
yes. So Kim, she pulled a big favor for someone apparently, stopping a high-speed police chase on the highway in the
So they
past.
do have police though in
Oh, they
town.
do. They do.
Okay.
Yes. And a traffic news helicopter pilot by the name of Dallas does her a solid by giving her a ride in the helicopter to the
Okay.
observatory
Wow.
because he was like, "Thanks so much for stopping that police chase, Kim." And I think Kim says something like, "Oh yeah, it was no biggie at all. The guy didn't even know he had a broken tail light."
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's like that's why the whole chase was happening.
Kim's like, yeah, I mean, I flinch every time I see a white Bronco these days, anyways. And the cameraman's like, that was the best that made my career getting those shots.
I
Thanks,
know.
Kim.
I'm still getting royalties from that stuff. You never believe it, man. You know, they're making a documentary out of that
I'm gonna
whole
be in
case
it.
soon. Yeah. So, yeah, as Kim approaches the observatory after hopping out of this helicopter, super badass, like waving goodbye to the pilot, who I think
Mhm.
his name is like Dallas or something. She's like,
Yeah,
thanks, Dallas. Like, first name basis again,
of
just
course.
hilarious. So she approaches the observatory and she hears a large explosion come from inside. And this is while
Oh,
she's like radioing Ron too to like get his ETA as he's like huffing and puffing on his
up a
bike up this
mountain.
hill to an observatory. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's not
He's
going
getting
well,
that
but that
mathlete shape, you know?
he'll know how to do those equations so well after this
So
cardio.
well.
Yeah, his quads are going to be so ready for that, those equations. So inside the observatory, we see that Professor Ramesh is being cornered and surrounded by these fembots
Okay.
who have just blown through a wall to get to him, thus the explosion that was heard from outside.
Mhm.
And these are the same bots from the day before or a couple of days
Okay.
before that abducted Professor Chen. But this time we get a much cleaner, clearer look at them because the lighting is better. They're not sneaking around in the
Yeah.
shadows. And we see that these robots, like we said, they're very curvy, that what exactly as you would expect for
Yeah.
a curvy robot,
2002. Yeah.
And they've got like long blonde hair that does not
Okay.
seem to be a wig this time, like
Oh,
the
the
older female robots that we just so happen,
to
pure
mention
coincidence,
recently.
I yes to mention. They've got like a dark hairband just past their bangs that are nicely like swooped over, and
Okay.
they're wearing like black athleisure, almost like a bikini, but like
Oh, I'm
more like crop tops and
I'm
like
really not gonna lie. I'm just picturing the like fembots from like Austin Powers. When you see the headbands, I think they have those little like
they
scarf
do.
headbands on. Like
Yeah.
that's all I'm picturing, even though they're
Basically
not
that
wearing
with metallic
athleisure.
skin. Literally
Yeah.
basically that with metallic skin. And then yes,
Oh my God.
athleisure.
Funny.
Um, and so Professor Ramesh asks the robots who they are, and they very robotically respond. I am BB. I am
All right,
BB.
BB 2.0, baby.
2.0, maybe 5.0 even. I don't know. It's
2002.
a big
BB
jump between
2002.
us. Yeah.
Lot of
Maybe
copies.
2002. So at this exact moment, before Professor Ramesh can like say out loud something like, "Oh, BB, like where have I heard that?" Or
Yeah.
he's under a lot of pressure. There's a lot going on. He doesn't really have
He's
time to react to
stressed.
this.
Yes.
And it's been a while too. It probably doesn't click for him at first. And also at this moment, Kim does burst into the room, ready to kick ass. And so he's
Yep.
distracted by that. And yes, kick ass as per usual. She mostly does.
Cool.
robot ass that is in this case. Kind of, at least. It is hard to fight robots, but she doesn't
Yes.
at least get her ass kicked. Let's put it that
Okay,
way. And
okay.
she is able to protect Professor Ramesh from being captured for a bit.
Okay.
She's able to fight off these robots, but they've been programmed to do some crazy stuff. Like they've got super speed. They're obviously very strong.
Mm,
They are martial arts experts. So any attack that Kim tries to fight them off with, they
they
already
got.
know it, basically.
Mm.
Yeah. Eventually, though, in the middle of this fight, Ron arrives finally on his bike to the
Oh,
observatory,
I forgot. Forgot his
and
bike.
he kind of pedals right on into like the main observatory doors, like with
Uh-huh.
his bike, and he's huffing and puffing, like literally about to pass out, saying like, "Hey Kim, don't think I didn't hear you insulting me on the phone. By the way." But now that he's here, the BBs kind of like put their sights on him, and
Ah,
this distracts Kim for a second because she's like, "Oh God, Ron can't protect himself."
the
So she
bait's
looks
here.
over. Exactly. So she looks over at Ron and takes her eyes off of Professor Ramesh for a second
Ah,
and tries to help Ron as he's under an impending attack by these robots.
and asthma.
And asthma, exactly. He might not make it for another 5 seconds. But in that moment, with Kim distracted, a couple of the other BB robots are able to use their like hyperspeed to run up to Professor Ramesh,
Mm,
scoop him up, and then run the fuck out of there with their new captive.
mm.
So in all of this wreckage of Professor Ramesh's office and like the overall observatory is just like ruined now from that
Oh,
fight between Kim and the
yeah.
robots just like blowing up walls to freaking capture this guy. Ron is kind of just like looking through stuff or like stepping over all of this wreckage, and he
Uh-huh.
notices an old framed picture of Professor Ramesh with his old college buds,
Mm,
Bob Chin and James Possible. And
uh-huh.
at this moment, Ron's like, "Oh wow, interesting. Ramesh is friends with James? Huh, with Kim's dad. That's so interesting." And sweet little Rufus is very much helping Ron like click all of this
Put it,
together.
put it
Like, hey, you see,
together.
so
Two of
you
them are
get it?
gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Two of them
And
are gone. Squeak, squeak,
eventually
squeak.
he literally like
Oh,
like pointing at the picture, like, come
come on,
on.
bro.
Yeah. And yeah, thankfully Ron does eventually realize that Dr. Possible is likely the next target of
Yes.
these fembots and the next like Middleton scientist who's about to be abducted.
Mm.
But Ron still is super pissed off at Kim, not only because of the cheerleading stuff, but because she's now also blaming him for Professor Ramesh getting abducted.
Okay, Kim.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he did distract her, but Kim shouldn't have gotten distracted. All right.
Yeah,
Kim should have been able to take down those four
you
robots
should have
on her
stayed
own.
focused.
Yeah, stay focused, Kim. Look inward, okay?
Come on,
Look
Kim.
inward. You're being hard enough on Ron, maybe. Take
Yeah.
this one on yourself. Yeah. So Ron is like, you know what? We don't need Kim's help to save her dad. He's
Okay, well,
talking to
now,
Rufus
Ron,
now.
now you're being petty. You need Kim to
Everyone
save
is
her
being
dad.
unreasonable in this
This is
moment.
why teenagers can't be mercenaries. Okay?
You see,
They're petty as
Exhibit
fuck.
A, B, and C all wrapped up in these past couple of
This
episodes.
is why.
Okay. So Ron does come up with a plan of his own and decides to save Dr. Possible and solve this mystery without
Oh,
Kim's help. At least like to the extent that he can before Kim has to come
yes.
in and save him. I think he inevitably knows.
Yes.
He's like, I can at least get a few steps ahead of
I can
her
at least
though.
save her dad
Yes, and then she can save me from
and
saving
her
her
dad.
dad while I'm saving
Yes.
her dad. Yes, and the other professors. So Ron goes to get his movie makeup magic kit to make a mask of James. Mhm. I was like,
Oh,
okay, Ron, let me step
that's
back and let
pretty
you take the wheels.
smart.
Yes. I was
All right, let's see
like,
what happens.
okay, yeah. And so he dons the mask, goes to the possible house, or I'm sure he puts it on later, because he does go to the possible house and he does
Uh-huh.
talk with James Possible and lets him know, like, hey, there's a crazy mission I got to do real quick. Kim and I are working on it. I'm doing this. Stay inside. Don't worry about it. We've got this under control. That's
Yeah,
basically all that he says. And James is just like, okay, whatever, Ronald. Like, you,
he's pretty used to it.
okay, I'll
Keep
be
the
in my
foam
lab
out of my
downstairs.
house.
Literally, that's it. So, as expected, the killer BBs eventually arrive at the possible home. And this is just as
Hey.
Ron, who is now masked as James, is getting into the car in the driveway, pretending to just get in to leave and go somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And as Ron sits in the front seat of the car, these robots, it's
Oh
insane
no.
when you watch it. They literally bust through the roof of this car. Like you just see him look up and there's like two robots standing over him in a massive hole and they just like reach down and like yoink him out of
Yoink 'em.
there
Oh
very
God.
violently.
Also,
Obviously,
James is
they think
inside
it's
hearing
Jane.
this, just being like, fucking Ron,
Oh,
ruining my
Ronald.
car.
Ronald. Put a pin in that. It's hilarious. Literally, like,
Noted.
next
Pinned.
line. Very short pen. Meanwhile, while this is all happening, Kim has returned to school for cheerleading practice because, again, there's a
Mhm.
game this weekend. They got to get their routine together. But the practice, at first, it's going well because Ron's not there. No offense to
Yeah.
Ron, but like it's smooth. No one's spraying foam anywhere. He's not doing any
Great.
mad dog shit to like interrupt their
Yeah.
routines. But the practice is eventually interrupted by another man very close to Kim, her father, James, the real James,
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
He storms in asking, I think he says like Kimberly Ann Possible, like using her full government name, which all the other girls like look at her and are like, oh
Oh
shit, you're in trouble,
shit.
girl.
You're in
What did you
big trouble.
do? Yeah. And she's like, Daddy, what are you doing here? What's
Uh-huh.
wrong? And he's asking where the fuck Ronald is in a much more age appropriate way for Disney
He's
Channel.
ruined my car.
Literally, because he says, that hole in the roof of my car really fucking grinds my gears. That is a step too far. And Kim's like, well,
Yeah.
he's not here. And what do you mean he put a hole in the roof of your
Yeah, let's back
car?
up a couple steps here.
Yeah, like
What?
two steps back, like she double takes on that. Like, yeah, I'm actually happy he's not here, but what did you say about him putting a roof in the
Yeah,
hole
but
or a
hold on,
hole in
what?
the roof of your car? I'm sorry, that does not seem characteristic of Ron at all.
Yeah.
And so her dad's like, I don't know, he just said something about a mission and now there's a hole in my car. And they're like, okay, well, let's go
And no
find
Ron.
Ron right now. Because
Yes.
I also do not know where he is. And I'm actually kind of worried. Where is he? You make a good
Yeah.
point, Dad. So Kim calls Wade again and asks
Hmm.
him to track down Ron, assuming that he has microchipped Ron at some point in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Wade has done that. And
Wade is like, what, do you think I have a microchip in him? And then Kim
then
just
there's
looks
just
at him through the
silence.
video chat. And then he's like,
Here are the
okay, one
coordinates.
second, I'll send you the location.
Yeah,
So
all right. Don't say anything to him.
please don't tell him, which means that she absolutely has. Well, no, I think Kim knows that Wade has her microchip too. I was
Yeah,
going to
Kim
say she's
asked for
probably
it. Kim was
realizing,
like,
but
you should probably give me
exactly.
one just in case. You got
That's
to know where
it.
I am.
Exactly. So we then see Professors Chin and Ramesh, along with Dr. Possible slash Ron, being held captive behind an electrified looking force field of
Okay.
sorts, and also surrounded by these BB robots in this just very dark room.
Okay.
And the three of them are in there kind of like wondering like what is going on, what's
Do they
happening,
realize
why
that
are we
this is not
here?
actual James?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
He still has the mask on and he's just like being quiet. He's just
Oh,
kind of
okay.
like standing by himself while Ramesh and Chin are going back and forth, like, well, it's probably some evil villain that needs the three of us geniuses to help him take over the world. What
Uh-huh.
else could it be? Like typical day in Middleton for us three scientists,
Yeah, as far as
which
geniuses.
which also Bob Chin sounds low-key excited about this opportunity, about the fact that an evil genius may need their help for something. So
He's like,
keep
this is
an
what
eye
I
on Bob Chin
studied
here,
for.
everybody. Yeah. He was like, what else could it be? Obviously, someone needs our help to help take over the world.
Obviously, we're geniuses and they need our genius
And
help. Do I look
and
okay?
Professor Ramesh is just kind of looking at him like, I mean, I guess, but like,
But
dude,
like also
why are
probably
you why are
not.
you why are you shaking with excitement right now? Why are you smiling at
Yeah,
that?
we should feel fear right now.
Yeah.
Fear.
Might want to kill us on the other
Yeah.
hand. And even if he doesn't, we don't want to do evil things,
Yeah, there's
right?
none of this is still good. Why are you smiling? Stop
Yes.
nodding.
So we then hear from the shadows that familiar gruff and raspy
Mm.
voice saying, Gentlemen, don't flatter yourselves. There's only one genius here, and it is I. And as
Ooh,
he comes out of the shadows, we see and he says, Dr. Draken. And Professors Ramesh and Chen look at him and immediately are like, wait, Drew? Drew
yep.
Lipsky?
Yeah. That little
You're not Dr. Draken.
nerd? Yeah.
Ronald takes this as an opportunity to now remove his mask and say,
Mm.
no, that is Dr. Draken, the evil Dr. Draken, and he is in for a world of hurt. And Dr. Draken sees Ronald and is like, oh shit, is Kim Possible near?
Kim's here.
Is she here? Is she near? But Ron, the freaking idiot that he
It's a
is
no.
like, no, she's not actually.
No, Ron, Ron,
No, not
Ron,
only
Ron.
did I already take off the mask and give up the game, so I have no leverage against you anymore, but I
Ronald.
also just admitted that I'm all here by myself, and I'm obviously the bumbling
Alone.
idiot of the duo, the possible trio, I should say. Quad.
Ron.
Sorry,
Quad.
Rufus. So obviously, when Draken says at first that like, is Kim Possible here? You see Ramesh and Chin get excited, like, oh my God, thank God, we might have a
Yes,
chance.
we called her. She knows.
And then Ron says, no, she's not. And you see all like
It's the
just the
morale
life,
just
yeah, like fall
like
out of
we're
them. And they're just like,
fucked.
oh no. And
We don't know
Draken,
who
on the
this
other
kid
hand,
is.
we have no clue. I've never seen this kid in my freaking
Yeah.
life. I don't even know how he knows
He's not
James.
in the newspaper.
Yeah. But obviously, Ron saying this excites Draken on the other hand. He's like, he
Hmm.
just starts smiling, like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm gonna torture the hell out of you guys
Right. And
now.
now you're also, Ron, you're still bait. Now you're bait for Kim to come here for me.
Yeah, right.
Like,
So just
Ronald.
lose-lose situation for Ron
Yeah.
Stoppable here. He
Ron,
is very
Ron.
stoppable. But before Draken continues his plan to destroy the professors and Ron now, he takes a moment to just yell at the BBs and just totally admonish them, these robots, I should say, saying
Hmm.
that they were designed and programmed to be perfect. Like he's been working on them for years now, decades even, as
Decades.
we know. And so he believes that he's perfected them in every single way. And so
Mm.
there's no reason why they shouldn't have known that Ron was wearing a mask and that he wasn't
Mm.
actually James. So the BBs, they start to take a little bit of offense to this. I think he maybe put
Yeah.
a little bit too much sentience in them and like made the AI a little too strong, if you will,
Yes.
because they start to like listen to his comments and get a little like
Oh,
uniony,
yes.
little hammer and sickly,
Unionize,
and
baby.
and start to collectively exert pressure on Draken until he
Good. Good.
retracts his insults. They're saying like, excuse
Oh.
me, like I think at one point he calls them lackeys or something like that, and they're like, oh hell no. No, no, no. What was that? And he's like, nothing.
Yeah, that's
Just
right.
go and find James and
Damn.
Kim Possible. Or
He
go
still
and
can't
find
talk to
James, I mean.
girls
No, he still
after
doesn't
all
know.
these years.
And he still can't design robots after all these years.
No,
He either doesn't do enough or he does way too much. He can't
way
find that
too
happy
much. Yeah.
medium. So the BBs go out to find the real Dr. Possible now. And Ron, at this point, once the BBs are gone, asks Draken why he is even after Kim's dad and his friends, anyways. Like, what is the meaning of all this?
Mhm.
And it is at this very moment that Draken realizes that Kim Possible is James Possible's daughter. He's like, wait, Kim is James' daughter? And literally Ron and Ramesh and Chin are all like in this electromagnetic cage
Yeah, just like,
laughing at
duh.
him like, yeah,
Oh no,
duh.
don't laugh at him.
And Draken's like, well, how was I supposed to know? Possible is a super common name. And they're like, no, it's not. And he's like, hold on. He grabs a fucking phone book. It starts flipping through it. And he's like, possible. Okay, there is only one possible family in Middleton.
Mhm.
And he's like, well, how the fuck was I supposed to know that? So also it means that, yeah, you mentioned it in your episode last week with like, you're not sure about like the background, the canon and history behind Dr.
Yeah.
Draken. Like, is Kim his nemesis because of James being a scientist dad or
Guess
something?
not.
Or is there? Nope, he had no clue. This is
No
just the happiest
connection.
of happy coincidences.
Yeah.
No
Well, I'll be
connection.
darned.
Well, goddamn. Well, two birds, one stone, I
What's wrong
suppose, if I can make
today?
it work. Yeah. Well, would you get a load of this? Would you
Well,
get
you
a load of
know.
this? So Kim and James, who again have been given the location by Wade, who has
Hmm.
a tracking device, and Ron, they arrive at this location, which happens to be the Middleton Motor Lodge, aka just like a conference
Oh.
center, where the class reunion actually is supposed to be held. Yes.
Okay. I
And
forgot
Dr.
about
Possible
that.
recognizes this because when they go inside the building, they see that everyone in there, and including even the valet outside of the
Uh-huh.
building, has been knocked out with knockout gas.
Oh, okay.
Everyone. And this is like super concerning for Kim. Kim's like, yeah, this is very, very bad. Like, there are
Yeah.
a lot of people in here who are unconscious. Like, that's
Yeah.
a lot of assault charges, a lot of other federal charges that I'm
Good
gonna
thing we
have to
won't actually call the
relay.
cops though, Dad.
Yeah,
We're good.
I know. They'll come in
Just
after
step
this, but
over the
like, man,
possible corpses. We're
for the
good.
people that have to deal with this,
It's a
that's
lot of
very
paperwork.
scary. That's a lot to do. And meanwhile, James is also worried because he's like, yeah, our class reunion is here tomorrow. They got to get this cleaned up in
That's
time.
because lickety split here.
This place, I'm not giving this place a good review if it looks anything
It's
like,
gonna
if
be
it
like
has this many
this.
unconscious people at it when I come here tomorrow
Yes.
for my reunion. So they continue to follow the tracking device or the coordinates,
Uh-huh.
and they follow it into the specific room or like reception hall where James's reunion is to be held the next
Mm.
day. And they turn on the lights in that room and they see Ron and Professors Chen and Ramesh behind this electric force field type
Hmm.
thing. And so those three are obviously super happy and relieved to see Kim and her father.
Hmm.
Draken, he takes a second to look up from that phone book and he is frightened and also still cannot get over the fact that he went to college with his arch nemesis's dad. Like
Right.
he,
Is he like, you guys do look alike?
I don't even think he says, I just think he's like, I just can't believe
That
this.
was just so
Like,
silly of me.
it's just so crazy. I think that like as soon as James walks in and sees Draken, like with the lights on, he's like, wait, Drew? Drew Lipsky? And then Kim is like, wait, Drew, the guy from your story the other
Are you
day?
laughed
And so then
at?
at this point, all of them just like need a moment. Like they all just have to take a second and
You know,
like
it's such a
piece.
small world.
I
Look at
know.
Crazy
They're like,
Drew.
this is crazy. What a small
Jeez.
fucking world Middleton is. Who would have known?
Oh
And
my
also
God.
in hindsight, hilarious to think that James and Bob and Ramesh are like, we never heard or saw from him again. And he's
Right.
in the same fucking city that he was in the whole time.
Right. Like he
I
still
mean,
has
like,
like
yes, he
leak,
changed his name,
but he's like
but
still in the
yeah,
newspaper when he gets arrested and shit. And like they would have seen a photo of
exactly.
him.
Yes. And yes, granted, now he does have blue skin. His hair is a little more unkempt. He's
Yeah.
got some
They need to see
scars
him
on his
next to
face.
the robots and they
Yes.
needed the in-person vibe from him, you know?
Yes. And I do think it's his voice that is the thing that
Yeah.
they recognize for him. It's like once he starts talking, that's when all of these people from
They're
his
like,
past are like,
what?
wait, Drew?
Yeah.
Drew, that's you? Because he also dropped something about like going to college with them, plus his voice. And they're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, Drew, wow, how you been,
Oh
dude?
my
Oh, not
God,
well, obviously. Obviously not well. So
bud.
yeah, so they all kind of just take a beat for a second to
Huh.
realize, like, wow, like
What
little
are
reunion,
chances?
how great this is. And James is like, yeah, I mean, like, I can't believe that I never noticed it. But, like, to be fair, he wasn't blue in college.
Fair.
And Draken hilariously was like, no, but I was blue on the inside.
Oh no. Oh no.
So he goes on to say how betrayed he felt by his friends and his posse
Oh
after they ridiculed him for
no.
his Model 1 BB
Oh
robots.
no.
And once he received an invitation to the class reunion in the mail, which James hilariously like yanks out of his hand because he's like, technically you're a dropout, so you are not entitled to
Sir,
that.
this is when you
Yeah,
apologize.
I know. I
Your
was like,
friends and
James,
your kids'
bro.
friends in prison of some sorts. This is when you say,
Nah.
yeah, I'm sorry.
James says fuck it and leans into it. But
He's always leaning.
Leanin' James. Leanin' James possible. um, Draken realizes that this reunion was the perfect time for him to execute his revenge and plan a
Mm,
nice little reunion of his own, which
mm.
they are in the middle of right now.
Yeah.
So he orders the Bebes to return to him at once. And they do. They rush back into this conference room or this reception hall. And
Hmm.
he explains to James that the others, sorry, that the robots are perfect. He's finally figured it out. And best of all, they are programmed to do whatever he commands them to do.
Didn't really seem like it before.
I know. And the BBs remember this too, because
Yeah.
again, they've been sharpening their sickles and getting those hammers waxed and ready for swinging because they then ponder why they, if they are perfectly created and programmed as
Uh-huh.
Draken explains, why must they obey and take orders from an imperfect man such as
Oh,
Draken? Hmm.
we're all asking that
And
question.
we all are the age-old
Preach,
question the oldest
ladies.
time. Okay.
Preach.
So the BBs conclude that Draken is actually unfit to command them, and they begin
I
to
love
approach
this.
him in a much more menacing than friendly kind of way.
Mm.
And meanwhile, Chin and Ramesh are just like lolzing in the cage, like
Wait, like,
it's
this
just
guy's
like
still
college
hilarious.
all yeah, like he still
Bro, you
can't
never
even
changed,
make a
bro.
robot, bro. It's like college all
Can't
over
make
again. I
a
think one of them is like he should just go to cloning instead, which
robot.
I feel like is hilarious because it's like cloning has to be one of the hardest
It's
forms
like
of like science,
so much
like
harder.
biogenetics and stuff. Yeah. But then it's like they're downplaying it, saying like he can't even make a robot from scratch.
Oh
Dude,
my
just clone
God.
yourself. How
Yeah.
lame.
Get out of here, loser.
So Kim at this point is low key fearing for Draken's safety, seeing these robots move
Yeah.
into him, but also realizing like, okay, well, once they're done with him, they're obviously going to come after us next.
Yeah.
So she jumps into action to stop the BBs before they get any closer to him or them. And again, she kicks some robot ass, as she tends to
Nice.
do. But these things were designed perfectly by Draken, as he
Mm.
says, and they put up quite a fight. And there are like at least four of them, maybe even more. So she is super outnumbered.
Yes.
And she's struggling a bit against them. Again, she's landing her blows, but they're fast. They can still
Yeah.
pick her up and throw
She's
her. She's a
getting
gymnast,
worn
so she
thin.
is landing on her feet. But yeah, it's a challenge. And Ron sees this and he's like begging, looking around and seeing that he's surrounded by four scientists and
Uh-huh.
Kim. He's like, dude, can any one of you scientists in the room do something to please stop these robots? They're gonna kill
Yeah.
her and then us. And Chen and Ramesh are just like, bro, we're astronomers. What do you want us to do?
I don't build robots.
Yeah. It's hilarious though, because he accepts that. He's like, ah, shit, you're right. And then he looks at
And then they're both
Draken.
like, phew, he believed
Phew.
us.
Thank God. Yeah. Huh, I don't want to get involved in that. Let them handle it themselves. And Draken, he looks at them fighting, at the robots fighting Kim, and he's like, oh, just let the ladies settle this one. Like, I kind of win either
This
way. Like,
kind of
they
worked out for
either
me.
kill Kim and then kill me, or they at least kill Kim and then I can get away, maybe. I don't
God,
know. So
classic
I
men turning
just
women against each other.
always,
Classic.
always look at them all. Thankfully, we have a very good father figure in this
Oh,
show who actually, I will
good.
say, I do love James. He's a great
I do too.
character. Like, this episode is very fun, but I'm excited to see his other shenanigans and antics.
Yeah.
Um, so James, decides to call Wade, seeing that no other scientist can help right now.
Yeah.
He calls the smartest person he's ever met in his life, Wade
Truly.
Load, 10-year-old assistant to Kim, his daughter.
Mastermind behind the Team Possible.
Mastermind. Yes. And he asks Wade to create some sort of sonic disturbance that's very loud and very high frequency as soon as he can through this like
Wade
Kim
is actually their
communicator thing.
boss. Like Wade
Yes.
runs Mist where they all work
The
in Teach.
observatory and Mist
Yeah,
and
he's
yes,
actually
the
the
space center.
grantor who gave James the grant
All
for
of
the
them their
rocket.
money. Yes. I mean, hey, anyone who can turn his father's disgusting gym socks or like whatever
Into
into a noxious gas that can take
in
out
a
a
lip
whole like
balm.
municipality or yeah, exactly, and be housed in like a lip balm, like yeah, give that man
Pay the
all
man.
of the money and all of
Yeah.
the power. Okay, pay
Yep.
the man so that he can pay other scientists beneath him to
Yep.
also do cool stuff.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, so Wade is like surprised to see Dr. Possible at first. He's like, Dr. Possible? Like, shit, something must be really bad. So he
Yeah.
doesn't even question Dr. Possible's request here, he
Uh-huh.
immediately sends a sonic frequency or a sonic disturbance through the transponder or whatever, the
Cool.
communicator,
Yeah.
and it's able to jam the BB's wireless network signal.
Nice.
So the BBs then start to malfunction. They're like freezing up a little bit, like little electronic like shocks coming out of them and
Uh-huh.
everything. But they're still functional and still able to like scan
Mm.
the room and assess where this sonic disturbance is coming from. And they
Hmm.
see that it's from the communicator in
Yeah.
Dr. Possible's hand. So now they turn all of their focus to destroying that device in
Okay.
Dr.
Yeah. That makes
Possible's
sense.
hand. hmm So the robots immediately drop Kim and they march their way over towards James. And obviously,
Hmm.
this isn't much better for Kim. She's like, okay,
Yeah.
well,
Now my
fuck, I
dad's
still
about
need
to
to save
die.
you. Yeah. And so the gang then plays a bit of a game of like hot potato, just throwing this device around this room a
Uh,
little bit, trying to disrupt these BBs. And James eventually throws the device to Ron, who is still behind this force
oh
field.
yeah.
But like, so there's like layers between the electric
It's
like
kind of like a bar, like
gates.
bars
Yeah, they're like
almost. Yeah.
bars. And so he's able to like reach out for it through one of the bars. And these robots are so hyper focused on just getting this thing that
Uh-huh.
they just like run right into the electric force field
Oh shit.
as they try to capture it or catch this thing. And they just all
Uh-huh.
like fritz out and then
Okay,
start
thank God.
malfunctioning even more. Yes.
Great.
And so now that they're on like their literal last robotic leg after just running into all this shit and
Yeah.
everything and just being the sonic noise is still going on, so it's just wearing down on them. Kim is able to go in and absolutely dismantle them through martial arts, not like engineers, like
Yeah,
pull
she's
out
have
a
a wrench.
Phillips head and start, yeah, screwdriver or wrench and literally taking their arms off. But no, she is chopping their arms off with her kicks and her
Oh,
hands.
cool.
Yes, and all of their disconnected parts, the robot parts, begin to just like one by one explode in this reception hall as they're like
Oh,
flying
damn.
everywhere. James is like dodging them as they're exploding behind his
Hell
head
yeah.
and shit. It's chaos and
Yep.
very dangerous and fully destruction.
Yes.
So Draken in all of this chaos is trying to escape. He's like tiptoeing over
Beep,
like these
beep,
robot
beep.
parts and stuff, but he accidentally stubs his toe on one of them, creating
Oh
quite a
my.
scene, like the noise of it and him like shouting like, "Oh my
Yeah. Ow,
God."
ow, ow,
Kim turns around and sees him and then
ow,
of
ow.
course captures him or stops him from leaving, asking
Yep.
like, "Don't you want to stick around for your class reunion though, Draken? Dot
Hmm.
dot dot. Mr. College dropout though." So later that night, and I guess we assume he's arrested. He doesn't really escape. Like he
We
tries to
don't
escape
know.
and fucks up again. So like, yeah, maybe he's
Who's to
arrested.
say?
I guess he's always getting out of prison, I
Yeah,
guess.
classic.
Um, and so later that night, Professor Chen and Professor Ramesh, they're hanging out with James, and Anne, possible, at their
Hmm.
house for dinner. And James and his buddies agree that they were definitely too hard on Drew back in the day, back
Yeah.
in college, and that maybe if they had gone a bit easier on him, there would be one less mad scientist in the world.
Yeah.
And Kim overhears this conversation and runs off to the living room where Ron is also hanging out and like packing up
Hmm.
his Mad Dog mascot costume into his book bag. And she asks Ron if her acting so rotten to him over the past few days is gonna cause him to one day
Become a
become
mad
some sort of
scientist.
mask wearing. Now, I will say, and I laughed at the fact that she does not say mad scientist. She says some sort of mask wearing villain because she knows that Ron will never be a scientist or an
They both
evil
know.
genius. Yeah.
Everyone knows that. Yeah, Ron's not gonna dispute that.
Yes. And so Ron says, if I say yes, will you let me do my mad dog routine?
Oh.
And Kim's like, that's not a good reason for me to say yes, which disappoints Ron at first. But then
Yeah.
Kim finishes and says, because you're my best friend, that's a good reason to say yes.
Hmm. That's right,
So
Kim.
she lets Ron be the school mascot at this week's basketball game. And Ron, he fucking kills it. Okay. He
Of
was
course
right
he
all along. Of course
does.
he does. Like we knew that he would kill it.
Yeah,
We
from the
knew
jump,
this.
I said that's perfect for him.
Exactly. He is cheerleader mascot material without a doubt.
Yes.
And so the crowd absolutely loves his performance and his energy, even the part with the foam.
Ah,
You would lose me on that part, but every other part I'd be like,
everyone
that
else
was cool,
loves
but I fucking
it.
hated the foam. Exactly. And the cheerleaders watch nearby. And Kim, she sees this and she's honestly like surprised, but pleasantly surprised, like, huh,
Yeah.
they do like him. Like, good,
Yeah,
good
maybe
for
I
you,
should
Ron. I'm
trust the
glad this
person who I
worked
have to
out.
trust on every single mission so I
Literally
don't die.
with my life.
Yeah.
Yes. And while Kim is pleasantly surprised, Bonnie,
Oh, she's
meanwhile,
so
is
mad, isn't she?
jealously surprised. She's like, I
Yeah.
can't believe they actually like him. What? And Ron, he's just having the time of his life, running around
Oh,
in this mad dog mask, spraying banana cream foam on the entire audience.
gross.
And that's the end.
Oh, Ronald.
Ron gets his win. Yeah,
Wow. Of course he slays at that. Of course. He's
of
so silly.
course.
He's
Yeah.
mascot material.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, and he slays on the court, and in reality, he kind of slays in the mission too. But in this case, he didn't. He didn't really help at all.
You
Like
know,
he thought he was helping by
he
yeah,
caught the communicator. He didn't drop
that's true.
it.
Which
And
was
he
like the
did get
final.
himself kidnapped instead of James.
Well, that's true. And
He's
at
good.
first, I would say that was helpful, but he gave up the game too quick. Like he
Yeah, no, I didn't
immediately
say
said,
it
"Okay,
helps the
yeah,
whole mission. It helps James not get kidnapped.
yes, that's
It
true.
helps the
That is true."
possible family. I mean, that's it.
Yeah. And to be fair, yes, Wade probably maybe doesn't have a tracker on James Possible, although I bet he still does. But
He
we'll
does
assume
now.
he doesn't. He does now for sure.
Yeah.
But he does have one on Ron, so it is better that Ron was the one kidnapped
Yes,
instead of
yes, yes,
James.
true,
Yeah,
true.
for sure. For sure.
Wow,
So,
great
yep.
job.
And
I
that
can't
is
wait to watch
that.
all
Yes,
this.
thank you. It's great. It's hilarious. Again, hilarious dialogue that I just could not fit into here for the sake
Yeah,
of
so much.
time and all of that. So you will absolutely laugh at a lot of the one-liners as you're watching
Yes.
it.
Yeah, and I do because in my first episode there was just like a moment with like a couple lines from Kim's dad, but yeah, I was like, oh, I want to see more of her parents, so I'm stoked to see this, especially now putting
Yeah.
together the voice actors and that kind of stuff with it.
I do hope that they're in a lot more of it.
Yes.
Like that they don't just kind of pop up here and there. Like I kind of hope that they
Yeah.
have more prominent roles in some episodes because
Yeah.
I actually think they're like perfect cartoon parents, like very supportive, very nice,
Yes.
very intelligent, like affable enough where it's like,
Yeah,
you
but
parents.
You
But at
guys,
the
but you're
same
not like, oh
time,
my
like,
God, so stupid.
yeah,
Please stop.
exactly.
You're like, oh, guys.
Exactly. You silly parents.
Wow,
But
great
anyways,
job.
yes, so thank you very much. So until next week, when we get back to your next episode, who should the lovely listeners and viewers tell about this show?
I think you should tell a cheerleader or someone who used to be a cheerleader. Let them know, they got to do a lot of working out, a lot of time at the gym.
sure.
They got to listen to
They
something,
need
pop
something
an
to listen
AirPod
to.
in. Yeah, while they're working out and stuff. And who else should they tell?
A mascot.
Beautiful.
Extra points if it's one who is a dog sort of mascot.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
a
very
bulldog
true.
or something like that. But any mascot will do. Yeah,
All right, yeah, we'll take
professional
'em.
level, high school level,
We don't discriminate our
college, you name it.
mascots.
No, not at all.
Lost demo. Mascots,
Exactly.
baby. Let's get
Exactly.
them.
We need you.
Get 'em
You
in
guys
here.
definitely need stuff to listen to.
Yeah. Exactly. Wow, wonderful.
Wonderful. Cool. Until next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Saturday Morning Mysteries.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share, rate, review, leave us a like, and drop a comment. We post episodes every Saturday and bonus tune tangents whenever we feel like it. So please subscribe so you don't miss the shenanigans.
And if you want to follow us on YouTube, click the bell under the YouTube subscribe button to receive notifications when new videos are posted.
And if you want to subscribe to the podcast, we have no idea what you're listening to us on, so just hit the big subscribe button on whatever app you're using. We believe in you.
Give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram at SatmornMist, all the abreves, and let us know if you have any episode or show requests by emailing SaturdayMorningMysteries@gmail.com.
Thanks to Jenna Kendall for the logo design and to Ava Sakiki for the music used during this week's episode.
See y'all groovy kids next week on Saturday Morning Mysteries.